Hey everyone, this is Kevin from thechesswebsite.com, and today we're in round number 9 of the 2018 Canada's tournament. Winner of this tournament does go on to face Magnus Carlsen in November for the World Championships. We do have 6 rounds left of play, so quite a bit of chess still to determine the winner. Our competitors today: White's going to be played by Sergei Karjakin. He is the winner of the last Canada's tournament, so he knows a thing or two about winning this thing and what it takes to have some momentum going into the last 5 rounds after today. His opponent, Vladimir Kramnik, who just played a marathon yesterday, did not come out on top. When these players faced off in round 2, they did have a draw, and pretty much this is their last chance. They're tied coming into this round, so the winner will definitely have a chance to go on and compete for the title. The loser, for the most part, will be out of contention unless there is a miracle. So we'll go ahead and get started. Sergey starts out pawn to c4, pawn e6, knight c3, pawn d5, pawn d4, and then after knight to f6, we have the queen's gambit, the exchange variation. And usually in the exchange variation, the knight's going to be here on f3. White has decided to bring his knight to c3 in development. So after the knight recaptures, pawn here to e4, knight takes on c3, pawn up to c3. We do have white with a strong advantage in the center of the board with his pawns, and then black just looking to just chip away the counterattack in the center. So starts out with pawn to c5, not really expecting the pawn to take here. Queens would come off the board. The bishop could then take here on c5. That would give black a huge momentum boost. Instead, we see rook to b1 controlling this semi-open file so that, this light square bishop cannot really move anywhere. It's usually not going to with the pawn here on e6, but just threatening, his opponents. Bishop d7, getting ready to castle on the king side. Knight here to f3, preparing the way if he wants to bring his bishop here to c4, b5 even, check his opponent, and then castle on the king side. Castle on the king side for black, and here's where things get interesting. We see pawn to h4. I don't think anyone was expecting this. This is not a book line by any means. This is a novel move by Karjakin, and just saying, I can still castle on the king side, but I'm going to be pretty aggressive here and start to push up on the king side with my pawn h4. So we see pawn takes on d4, pawn recaptures, knight to c6, so just development move, attacking the center, and then pawn to h5. So, wow, completely all in on the strategy to attack. And now it doesn't even look like white's looking to castle on the king side, which is somewhat odd. It does have a strong attack, center control here. Usually we're going to see white castling, have some sort of protection, and just milk his advantage in the center of the board. That's not what we're seeing at all. White's going on the complete offensive mode here, not just in the center, but on the king side. Pawn to f5. So Vladimir saying, I need to do something in counterattack. So he plays pawn to f5. After the pawn takes, queen down here, a5, check. Bishop d2, not too many great options as far as how to defend this. So bishop to d2, queen over here to f5, bishop to c3, defending this pawn here on d4, and then pawn to h6. Had different options. Could have played queen to e4 if he wanted to stay aggressive, but instead plays pawn to h6. Now bishop to d3, attacking the queen. Queen comes down here to g4, attacking the pawn here on g2. King to f1, so now signaling for sure there's no way to castle now. Does want to protect this pawn here on g2. Pawn to e5, saying, do you want to exchange? White says, no trade skis today, my friend. I'm going to have a pass pawn here that you're going to have to deal with the rest of the game. Pawn pushing forward here to d5. Pawn to e4. Forking both the bishop and the knight here, offering up a trade since this knight here on c6 is under fire. So pawn takes on c6, pawn recaptures, pawn takes here on f3. And this is where things get pretty interesting. Makes a lot of sense to just take with the queen, but black decides to take with his rook. If he does take with his queen, then we could see queen take here, rook recapture, now king up here to e2 to protect his bishop. Maybe black decides to exchange, completely up to him. Bishop down here to f5, king moves, and then it could take the rook if he wants to on b1, could take the pawn, and then later worry about the rook. He does have some options, but I feel like this is a better play for black. After the rook comes down to f3, then we see bishop to e2. Now, he did also have the option of taking here on b7, but it's extremely complicated. If we look at it and see rook takes here on f2, king takes, this king is wide open, no protection. We have these two bishops. We have the queen here that can just start attacking his opponent. Bishop down here, h4 check. Even if the rook takes, queen h4 check, and then just going to be dancing all over the place. Very, very difficult, for white to calculate every position and say, am I winning here? Yes. Pawn takes on b7 and it's protected by this rook, so I'm going to win one of these pieces. But in the meantime, am I going to lose the game? So while, if you were to just run this analysis, yes, you could probably see that the pawn taking on b7 looks better. It's just no way to really play that and feel safe about it. So it plays the move that is much more objectively easier to see that it's better, and that's bishop to e2. Attacking both the rook and the queen behind this, knowing that the rook can't move here. And so black decides, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and give up my rook. I'm going to get these two pawns, pawn here on c6 and f2 in exchange for my rook. That's a pretty bad exchange, as you can imagine, for black. But rook takes on f2, check. The king takes, bishop down here to c5, king to f1. Had the option as well to king to e1. You just rarely see white playing a strategy where he has no defenders from a pawn perspective in front of his king. It's wide open for black to attack, but it's very difficult to find a strong attack that's going to lead to anything significant in the game. Queen to f4, bishop up here, f3, and now the pawn takes on c6 to get those two pawns in exchange for that rook. Not necessarily the exchange he was looking for, but nonetheless, white continues with bishop down here to e1, bishop to e6, centralizing, bishop to h4, rook over here to f8, doubling up on this bishop on f3. So the king comes to g2. One wants to get out of this line of fire, also wants to add a defender to the square here on f3. Vladimir decides now to play king to h8. Not really sure this does anything. Almost feels like a wasted move to me. But rook to c1, attacking the bishop. Rook down here to f5. Rook up to c3. Rook to d5, which is another interesting move, giving up another rook since the bishop can just take this. And that's exactly what happened. Bishop takes here on d5, is opening up the door for a strong attack for his bishop pair. And he can win back some material here if he wants to, but giving up two rooks is somewhat weird. But then we have the great move, and that's rook to f3. I guess he just thought his bishop would take here, and then all of a sudden the king would move. He would capture this rook here on h1. But f3 is a great move. It says, yeah, if you want to take, that's fine. But the exchange for me is going to be much better. If the bishop were to take, then just queen takes here on f3. You don't want to see another exchange right here because that's going to be extremely bad for black. All of a sudden, he has to worry about a bishop and rook and just going to be gobbling up all these pawns. Easy win for white. If instead, after the queen takes, queen down here to d2 check, yes, you can gobble up that pawn here on a2, but at the end of the day, white's going to have too much material. This rook is going to do a ton of work in combination with this queen. White should have a very, very easy victory from here. If the bishop doesn't take, if instead the queen takes here on f3, then after the queen takes, you got to take the queen back. Bishop takes, king recaptures. We're in a similar position as we saw before, but even now, the king is in a more prominent position to get to the center, start attacking his opponent. The rook can easily get involved. So all in all, yes, this rook to f3 is stopping the attack, but there's no way for black to really worry about and take that material right now. So he plays queen to g4, bishop to g3, stopping the check, bishop up here to d6, so rook to h3. Playing defense right now, but white's up so much material, he can do that. Bishop to e7, queen to e2, says, I'm just not too worried. You can take my rook if you want to. I can trade down a little bit and still be well ahead of my opponent. Queen to f2, pawn a5, pawn to a4, just stopping any sort of threats coming down. Pawn to c5. So there's a passed pawn. That's really the only thing that white has to deal with. Rook here to h1, bishop f6. Rook over here to e1, attacking the bishop. Bishop comes back here to c6. Rook to e3, just doubling up the rooks here on the third rank. So if it ever comes down, this pawn to c3, both of these rooks, if they want, can go ahead and take here, exchange a rook for a pawn and a bishop. That's going to be a good trade for white. Queen to e2, attacking the pawn as well. Queen back to h5. And then we see the queen take on c4. Pretty much all the threats have now gone for black. Has nothing going for him. Bishop back here to d7. After rook to d3, Vladimir Kramnik decides, you know what? I played a 91 move game yesterday. I'm going to shave off 50 moves today and just resign. So back-to-back losses for him. It was looking like he was in striking distance of the leaders just a couple games ago. Now, all of a sudden, after picking up 0 points in 2 games, he's now fallen well behind the leaders. Does not look like he will be in contention to win the Canada's tournament. Sergei Karjakin, he's not too far back. Definitely is going to have to beat Fabiano and some of the other leaders to have a chance. But with 5 games left, he is now in contention after a great game today against his fellow countrymen. So congratulations to Karjakin in round number 9. Thank you guys for watching so much. Much shorter game today than yesterday, which is good from a coverage standpoint. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.